I'm Jeremy Aliff, and this is my wife, Hailey Aliff.
We have been married 6.5 years. In May, we'll be married 7 years. And we've been trying to conceive pretty much ever since. So our fertility journey has been a long one, to say the least. So in 2016,
16, yeah.
My parents' home flooded, and they moved in with us for 9 months. But when they moved in, they had some friends come by that day and drop off some laundry from the flood. And it was a particularly hard morning for Jeremy and I.
We had been trying for over 2 years.
Yeah, I think at that
conceive?
point, a little over 2 years. I had started my cycle that morning, and it was just emotional. But the people who came into our home that day didn't know that, and they didn't know we were trying. And she just looked at us and said, I feel like the Lord just gave me a vision for you. Is it okay if I share it with you? And I said, sure. And she said, are you guys trying to have a baby? And we both just started bawling, crying right there, because it just touched our heart, but also it was sensitive for that day. And so she just said, I have a vision, and I'm just going to tell you what I see. I see snow everywhere. It looks like a very hard winter, a deep winter. And we both kind of remember it like she told us, where she was really preparing our hearts that it was going to be a long winter. Mm-hmm. But she said, I just want you to take heart that this winter is not going to last forever. There is purpose in winter, so just remember that God has you in this season for a reason, but that winter eventually will end and spring is coming. Yeah. And she shared with us that she saw things under the snow. She saw flowers blooming and life and bulbs and seeds, and it was very beautiful. And that image stuck with us so much from that day moving forward, that every time we had a hard month, or another friend got pregnant, or another cycle started, we would just remind each other, hey, there's purpose in this winter. Don't lose heart.
Spring is coming.
And spring is coming.
Yeah, that was an encouraging prophecy, but also like a little bit discouraging as well, because we weren't sure how long this winter was going to last.
Right. It had already been 3 years.
And the way she told us wasn't like it was going to be soon. It was like it was going to be a long time. So we held on to the fact that spring is going to eventually come, and that was kind of every month. That's what we told ourselves.
We both can attest that our faith grew mountains, that we got to a place where we felt complete peace and security. And I shared this with Jeremy just months ago, that if he never allowed us to get pregnant, that I would have peace, that he's enough. And he brought us to that place of our faith just being so wrapped in his goodness that it didn't matter what we got out of it.
We got to a place where we were like, we don't want our faith to be circumstantial. Mm-hmm. Our faith is not based off of how he responds to us, how he responds to our prayer, as far as like giving, God, why aren't you giving us the things that we want now, Our marriage, grew deep roots because we depended on each other and needed each other in ways that we weren't prepared for. And I think the Lord allowed us to grow closer together. But obviously, I would say our biggest reason for winter was because he called us to adopt. Yeah. And it wasn't obvious at first. We didn't know that.
We weren't always on the same page. I would have a desire and Jeremy wasn't ready. But when God gave Jeremy the desire one night in October, and Jeremy came to me and said, okay, I'm ready, and our hearts just aligned, we later found out that week that we decided we were going to adopt was the week our baby was conceived. Yeah. And so we just feel like the biggest purpose of our winter was for our baby Emerson and to adopt her. And we know that if we had gotten pregnant as quickly or when we wanted to, we wouldn't have her. Yeah. We wouldn't have chosen adoption.
I don't know. I knew that it would be an amazing thing, but for some reason I just had this thing in my mind. Yeah, like a block that this is kind of how it should be, right? We should have kids first, biologically, and then adopt.
Yeah, I think
And then eventually God just was like, no, like this is what I'm calling you to do.
Yeah.
And he made it really clear to me. And like the second I was like, okay, I'm ready, we like started the process ASAP. It was like, you literally sent an email like that day probably.
That night, yeah.
To our adoption consultant.
Yeah.
And it was just like, it was pretty fast and furious. 9 months later, we were holding Emerson, and it was just, the best day of our lives.
Yeah, when Emerson was born, everything clicked, everything made sense, that it's not just his timing, but his plan for our lives is so much better than anything we could have planned for ourselves or anything we could have imagined. And we can't imagine life without Emerson. I mean, she's our joy. Mm-hmm. She's healed our hearts in places we didn't know were possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the adoption process and it's just been the most incredible journey of our lives. And Emerson doesn't feel adopted at all. She feels like you literally birthed her.
Yeah.
Every day you're like, this child is like me when I was young. And everyone says like, Emerson is like,
it's amazing,
identical to what you were when you were this age.
Yeah.
And it's just like, no, it's pretty amazing. And Emerson is, she's called to do amazing things, and she has such a purpose for her life, and we're just honored to be her parents.
Yeah. So in all of our waiting in these years, there were different worship songs that came to light that really would just like nurture our souls throughout these hard months. Mm-hmm. One was called Bittersweet by Amanda Cook, and it just the same words over and over. It said, you turn the bitter into sweet, you turn the winter into spring. And we would just cry and worship and listen to that and just believe and hope that one day, he would turn our winter into spring. Mm-hmm. And last year, there was a song that came out by Hillsongs called Seasons, which again is just so all good. About winter is going to end, but it has purpose. Don't miss out on what winter holds, but then also spring is coming. And again, we would just listen to that in the car or at home and cry and pray and worship and
every month, or just that time in the month where we were just like feeling discouraged or upset or emotional, or just asking questions like, why isn't this happening? Another month, another year. The worship songs would help get us through it.
It wasn't until this past July, Emerson turned 1, that again, it was very similar of a feeling to when we both felt the call to adopt on that October night. Mm-hmm. There was just one day in July when she was 1 year old where we both felt like, okay, you know what? I think our season of conceiving is actually soon. Like we both felt it in our spirit. We couldn't put our finger on it. I knew in, the past, people had asked us, why aren't you guys looking into this medically? Like, why aren't you trying to figure out what's causing your infertility? And I had no explanation to give them other than we just didn't have peace about it. So we decided to finally go look for some answers as to why we hadn't conceived. And it was a really simple, easy fix that we found. Jeremy just basically needed to get his sperm super healthy. It consisted of super strict eating, no drinking, antibiotics, supplements, just really strict with his regimen. I ended up joining him as well for no alcohol, and just kind of doing this fast together. And we did that for 11 weeks.
Mainly for a guy, it's really hard, you know, for just to kind of go through that whole thing, knowing that like we want it so bad, and we knew what was like, I knew what was wrong, you know, like there wasn't anything wrong with you, you know, and it was hard for me. It was hard for me.
So in that period where we felt like our season was coming, we got our answers, we got our regimen, but then we also very specifically just prayed together and just asked God for confirmation. And I specifically prayed for dreams. I just said, please give me or people dreams to just kind of confirm for us that what we're feeling and hearing is true, and that's that this is our season. And again, like, we're not really sure, we weren't sure what season meant. Like,
Right.
What does that mean? Does that mean a year from now, 2 years from now? But eventually, Jeremy started saying, I really think October. I really think October is our month. Starting in September, there was a worship song out by Upper Room called what? You Always Restore.
Yes.
You Always Restore. And in parentheses, it says winter is over. And for 2 solid months, I mean, he played the heck out of this song every day, layering it, you know, in our car, in our living room or whatever. We'd wake up and I could hear Jeremy singing, you know, with this song in the background that you always restore, you won't leave us broken, winter is over. And so I just knew, I was like, okay, God put it in his heart, October's our month, like I'm on board. We had prayer warriors, when we prayed for dreams started coming out like of the woodworks.
People had come to us and said, hey, I had a dream. I feel like I heard that for years. But like the amount of people who were coming to us in that specific time period was like, it felt like 2 people a week for like 3 weeks. It was like, and random people. Hey, I had a dream. So like that was super encouraging.
So encouraging. And then a couple of dreams in particular about winter and about snow melting and about blooming and flowers. And so even though that didn't mean anything to them, it would just immediately just bring tears to my eyes, and to Jeremy knowing that's confirmation straight from God of, you know, winter is over and spring is coming.
Someone had a dream that you were pregnant and there was ice or snow on you, but it was melting or something like that. And we just had multiple dreams about a winter that was thawing out.
We flew to Dallas. We had a friend's wedding, and this was the night before the wedding. And we just went on a date, and I actually told him, I said, if I'm not pregnant, I'm worried about my hormones. Like, I feel so different. I was tired and hot and peeing a lot and just had all these things going on. So I was really hopeful that like I had some physical things. But the next day was the wedding, and we had a great time, and we got back to the hotel room, and it's late, and totally wasn't planning this, but Jeremy was like, hey, you should take a test. And he says he was joking, but I did. I went to the bathroom. I was saving the test for next week. But I went and I took it, and I had this moment where I was brushing my teeth, and I just had this like thought flash in my mind that my life was about to change. And I looked over and saw that it said yes. And I had all these ideas of one day when we had a positive test, what I would do and how I'd surprise Jeremy and how sweet it would be. And all of that went out the window. Like, I just was in complete shock. Like, I had faith. I thought that I was pregnant, but at the same time, I've never seen a positive. And so
it was surreal, for sure.
I just walked out the room just with bawling, crying, and he just kept going, is this real? Is this real? Are you kidding?
And you were holding
the
Are you
test, serious?
And I was like, what is it?
And it was it's digital, so it said yes, yes plus or whatever.
So I'm just like looking at it. My heart was beating fast. I was breathing heavy. I was like, oh my gosh. And I was in shock too. So I didn't start crying until like 2 minutes later, until it really hit us.
Bawled.
And we just bawled
our eyes out.
Okay, pull together for a second while I video. Jeremy told me to take a test after a wedding. I did not think it was going to be positive. This is backwards. It says yes.
This is amazing.
Easily one of the best nights of
Yeah.
our life.
Grandma again, honey again. Poor Emerson's crying over there. Poor thing.
My last two devotionals in the morning just almost confirmed. Wait, no.
Show them. She's been eating it. See what you got. Oh my god. Oh my god. Still the youngest sister.
Yeah?
We probably saw them.
I think I may have seen it.
True?
Yeah? Oh, amen.